There is a particular kind of friendship that nobody plans. It arrives sideways, through a broken shutter in a rainstorm, or a ledger that needs carrying, or a dog that quietly decides two people belong in the same room. Mrs. Myra Adeline Pryor had spent a lifetime paying attention. Eli Marshall was just beginning to learn how. Neither of them realized they were about to become part of the other's story. Good evening. I'm Sedalia Voss. Tonight's letter came to me in an unlikely form, a store ledger, not the ordinary entries of goods bought and sold, though those are there too, running in Mrs. Pryor's brisk, efficient hand down column after column. What caught my attention were the margins. Pryor's general store kept meticulous records, but someone, beginning in October 1880, began making small notes in the margins of the ledger. Not inventory, not prices, small observations, a line here, a sentence there, written in a hand that started out uncertain and grew more confident. Not Mrs. Pryor's hand, but someone younger, someone learning. Pull the covers up. The fire is lit. The margins in the ledger. Part 1. The Storm. October 1880. The storm came down from the ridge on a Thursday afternoon with the particular indifference of weather that has somewhere to be and no interest in what's in the way. Eli Marshall was 19 and had been cutting wood when the sky went the color of a bruise and the temperature dropped 20 degrees in the time it took him to put down his axe. He ran for the nearest shelter, which happened to be Pryor's general store, and arrived on the porch, soaked through and breathing hard just as the rain began in earnest. He stood under the overhang, shaking water from his hair, and became aware of two things simultaneously. The first was Chester, Mrs. Pryor's brown dog, sitting just inside the door, regarding him with placid sympathy. The second was the shutter, the one on the side of the building. Its hinge had given way at some point in the first gust, and it was swinging loose, banging against the store wall with each new surge of wind, a sound like a slow, methodical argument that nobody was winning. Mrs. Pryor appeared in the doorway. She looked at Eli. She looked toward the side of the building where the shutter continued its complaint. She looked back at Eli. Well? It was not a question. I can fix that, ma'am, Eli said. That'd be helpful, she said. Come in and dry off first. I'm not having you fall off my porch in a rainstorm. She stepped back from the door. He came in. The store smelled of coffee and candle wax and the particular dry goods smell that Eli had known since childhood, a smell so associated with Mrs. Pryor herself that he had never quite been able to separate the two. She put a cup of coffee in front of him without asking, and went back behind her counter and opened her ledger, and that, apparently, was that. He stood with his coffee and dripped on the floor and listened to the rain and the shutter. After a while, he said, Ma'am, you got a spare hinge? Third drawer from the left, she said, without looking up. Behind the lamp oil. He found it. He waited out the worst of the rain. Then he went back out in the diminishing drizzle and fixed the shutter. Chester watched him with quiet approval. When Eli came back in, Mrs. Pryor looked up from her ledger. "Adequately done," she said. For Mrs. Pryor, this was approximately the same as anyone else saying extraordinary. Part 2. Why he kept coming back. Eli came back the following week to check the hinge. It had held. Mrs. Pryor informed him that several crates in the storeroom needed moving. He moved them. She gave him coffee and cornbread. By winter, Thursday afternoons at Pryor's general store had become part of the shape of his week. Whatever needed doing, he did it. Chester greeted him each time with calm recognition. What Eli discovered over those afternoons was that Mrs. Pryor talked while she worked. Not excessively, simply steadily, the way a stove gives off heat. She talked about the valley, about the people in it, about the years before Eli had been born, and the small decisions that had shaped Harlan's Hollow into the place it had become. One Thursday in November, he asked why she kept such detailed records. She looked at him over her reading glasses. "Because things matter," she said. "Even small things. Especially small things. Nobody needs reminding of a flood or a wedding. It's the ordinary days that disappear." He thought about that all week. The following Thursday, he asked whether she would mind if he occasionally made notes in the margins. Mrs. Pryor was quiet for a moment. Then she slid the ledger across the counter. As she did, she glanced toward the back room. "Margins are there for a reason." Part 3. What he wrote. The first entries were small. Observations mostly. The way afternoon sunlight struck the front window in October. The sound Chester made when he dreamed. The family from Kentucky who stayed 3 days before moving west. A week later, he noticed a remark, a compliment, beside one of the entries. "Lovely description." Not Mrs. Pryor's handwriting. Different. Neater. He said nothing about it. His entries grew longer. The handwriting steadied. The boy who had arrived dripping rainwater onto Mrs. Pryor's floor slowly became someone who paid attention on purpose. One afternoon, in the spring of 1881, Mrs. Pryor read a note he had written about the river, how the water had sounded different in winter, more distant somehow, less deliberate. She was quiet for a moment. "You have a knack for it," she said. "For what, ma'am?" Eli asked, sweeping the floor. "For noticing details." Mrs. Pryor turned another page in the ledger. "My granddaughter has the same gift, different from yours, more thorough." Eli looked up. "Clara?" "Mm-hmm." Mrs. Pryor made another notation. "She comes in on Saturdays to help with inventory." Eli said nothing. Chester watched from his bed. "Saturdays," Mrs. Pryor repeated. This time she looked up from her ledger. Part 4. Saturday. Eli came in on a Saturday in April, on the pretext of a broken harness buckle that needed replacing. Clara was at the back shelves counting dry goods, a small notebook open in her hand, her dark hair falling the way it always did when she was concentrating. She looked up when he came in, then back at her notebook. "Harness buckle," she said. Third shelf, left side, tin box. He found it. He did not leave immediately. "You're counting," he said. "Inventory," she replied. "Every Saturday. My grandmother's system." "Does it take long?" "There's a great deal to count." He was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up the notebook she had set on the shelf beside her and looked at the columns. Neat, precise, every figure exact. "You write like her." Clara glanced at him sideways. "She taught me." "She says figures are a form of honesty." "I believe there's truth to that." "She told me that things matter, even small things." Clara looked at him more fully then. The direct look he remembered from 2 years earlier, when they had sat on opposite sides of a crate of puppies on the store porch. "That sounds like her," Clara smiled faintly. Clara turned a page in the notebook. "You've been writing in the ledger." Eli looked up. "You read it?" "Of course I read it." "I thought your grandmother might have shown you." "No." The faintest smile touched the corner of her mouth. "I was curious." For reasons he could not have explained, the answer pleased him more than it should have. She returned to her counting. He found himself watching her pencil move down the page. "What did she tell you?" he asked. "About what?" "About honesty." Clara considered that. "That honesty isn't a feeling." Her pencil paused. "It's a habit." He thought about that for a moment. Then he nodded. "That sounds just like her." "It does." For a second, both of them smiled. He stood there in the afternoon light with a harness buckle in his hand and thought that this was possibly the most interesting conversation he had had in a long time. Mrs. Pryor, behind her counter, did not look up from her ledger. But Chester, from his place by the door, wagged his tail as though all his favorite people were exactly where they belonged. Epilogue. A note from Sedalia. I set the ledger down and thought about a young man who came in from a rainstorm, fixed a shutter, and discovered some things are worth writing down. The records tell us that Eli Marshall and Clara Pryor married in time and raised a family of their own. Mrs. Pryor had been right. It was the small things that mattered. Rest now. The letter is sealed. I'm Sedalia Voss, and I'll find you again next week. Good night.